All right, we'll give it a minute or two to give folks a chance to join. All right, good evening. Welcome to tonight's live online author event with Greenlight Bookstore. I'm Jessica from Greenlight, and we are thrilled to host tonight's event, the Greenlight Poetry Salon. Angel Nafis will be your host and MC, so you are in for an excellent time with fellow poets Ted Dodson, Safia Elhillo, and Nate Marshall. So you'll hear more about them from Angel in just a moment. Before we get started, I just want to say a huge thanks to Angel and to all of tonight's poets for making this happen, for coming together, and to all of you for showing up. Though we're not able to host events in our store spaces right now, our community of authors and readers is still here. We're grateful for your support and for the chance to make space for conversation and connection. Just a couple housekeeping things. In our Zoom webinar tonight, you can see and hear the speakers, but they can't see and hear you. They can see that you're here though, and you can see a count of fellow attendees on the top of your Zoom screen. If you'd like to interact with the authors, show them how you feel, quote lines that you like, talk to each other, you can use the chat button, which you can find by clicking on the icon that looks like a speech balloon. We encourage you to post comments in the chat throughout the event. It's a great way to show your appreciation for the authors. And very importantly, all three of tonight's featured books are available for sale from Greenlight Bookstore. You can shop in person in our bookstore locations 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. every day of the week. And you can purchase books by tonight's featured authors and many others on site. I know we have some really good displays up for Poetry Month right now. Or you can order online at greenlightbookstore.com for quick pickup at the store or for shipping anywhere in the US. I'll be dropping those buy links in the chat throughout the event. If you care about supporting the careers of authors and the ongoing existence of independent bookstores, buying tonight's featured books is a great way to show your support. So our host for this evening, Angel Nafis, is the author of Black Girl Mansion, and her work has appeared in the Breakbeat Poets Anthology series and elsewhere. She is a beloved Greenlight Bookstore bookseller alum and the founder and curator of the Greenlight Bookstore Poetry Salon, and it's always a blessing to be in her presence. So you are very lucky to be here with her tonight and with all of these great poets. Please join me in welcoming, to kick things off, the one and only Angel Nafis.
Yay! I'm so happy to be here. Let me tell you a real secret. All of this is strictly for this event. Not a mere 4 minutes before I got on this Zoom, the head wrap was off, the face was not dewy, the lipstick was who knows where. I said, let me get it together for these good people all around the globe. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy to have this evening and welcome you all into the spring edition of the salon, the Poetry Month edition of the Greenlight Salon, the 420 edition to the Greenlight Salon, the Ramadan, like the intersections, it's basically spelling my name is what I'm trying to tell you. This is, obviously congrats to them for writing books, but this is my night because all I want to do is hear them talk. So this is my thing. I can't wait to bring each of these folks up here. I do want to say a few things. As you can already see, it's cracking in the chat. And I just want to keep that cracking level high. Let's just do that. That's all we have. Otherwise, this isn't different than like Netflix. You know what I mean? We gotta talk to each other. This is like our room space, and this is like our meeting foyer situation. And now I'm thinking about how this is kind of like Versus. You know, we know each other. You guys each have books on books on books. I don't know what you'll read. You might read some new shit. You might read some old shit. You might read some in the journal still shit. I don't know. I'm so excited. So everyone have everything that you need in your space ready to go because we're in it for the long run. They say the event's an hour, but you know what I mean? What do I have to do now? This might be my new life. Welcome. Okay, first up, by the way, I'm so excited. I was just talking to everybody before we went live, and I have all three of these host books. I'm just feeling myself off of that. And these aren't library, no shots to the library, but this isn't that. You know what I mean? These are my personal properties. I feel like I have the royal flush or whatever, like the poker term for like being rich now is. The first person that we are bringing up And let me just dramatically slide the book. Oh, she's wealthy. She's wealthy. The first person that we're going to bring up is Nate Marshall, a classic, just your classic Midwestern poet. Um, great spiritual grandson of Gwendolyn Brooks and kind of Lil Wayne. There's an intersection there. There's a syllabic delight there that they all share. The Venn diagram between them is like bigger than you would think. Nate is everywhere. I mean, I will put his website in here, and you can Google him if you don't know about that. You can read some of this bio with me. It's quite long because he's a workhorse. And
don't read that shit. Why?
Well, can I tell you something? Why were you so busy at 13 till now? This shit shouldn't even be that long.
Because I didn't do drugs until I was like 21.
It's like, why have you been out here thusly from a youth till now, just Professor Nate? I'm gonna read a little bit because it would just be very disrespectful to invite you to come read without saying some shit that you did. Okay, Nate Marshall is an award-winning author, editor, poet, playwright, performer, educator, speaker, rapper, cooker, Colorado liver. His book, Wild Hundreds, was honored with the Black Caucus of the American Library Association's Award for Poetry Book of the Year and the Great Lakes Association's New Writer Award. He's also the editor of The Breakbeats Poets, New American Poetry in the Age of Hip Hop. And he co-wrote the play, No Blue Memories, Life of Gwendolyn Brooks with none other than Eve Ewing. Just there's a lot of shit happening here. He's an educator, he's a professor. I never really understand from where his checks come from because they come from so many places. And just, I have to say, this is his second full collection. And I really loved Wild Hundreds. Like it's a book that's very easy to love. It's not, there's no effort. The love is very natural. But the minute I fucking heard the first poem from this book, not that it was the first poem in the book, but the first time I heard a poem that was going to be in this book, I was like, oh, this is going to be a situation. This actually next book situation is the problem with not being my book that I wrote. Nate, I'm so excited to have you here. This is the first time you've been at the salon. This is the first time. I cannot wait. Everybody make some digital snap-olas and like hug yourself and like light a little candle for Nate Marshall.
All right, here we are. Hold on, I have to finish chewing my edible. Sorry, I don't know. Keeping it real. All right, I'll start with this. Before we got on, Angel was like, if you got B-sides, like play the B-sides. So this is like super new. I haven't written a poem in a while. But this is a poem I wrote today, actually. And what do you need to know? So I'm from Chicago, in case you didn't know that. I don't know why you didn't know that, but I'm from Chicago. I'm a White Sox fan. I'm from the South Side. And whatever. The White Sox logo is very iconic. You see a lot of people wearing the hat and shit, even if they have never been to Chicago or don't care about baseball. This week I read this article about the like oral history of that logo, like when it came about in the 90s. And so I wrote a poem about that. This is called Ode to a White Sox Hat. All my favorite classics are from the 90s. Of course, it was those days that raised me. You were no different. That first cap I cocked until it got slapped straight by whichever adult was around. Now, you're still around, years later, still holding my head like a caregiver. From bald fades to just bald, we got a long history. Sometimes, away from the city, I see you and speak to your wearers. Often, it's just fashion, not passion. Maybe it's just the joint that fit the fit that day. Or maybe an allusion to the rap videos of my youth. But occasionally, I catch another lonely soul from some side of that side I will always lean towards. Cool. Poems. I'll do this. This is the first poem in the book. It's called Landless Acknowledgement. Before we get started here, we would like to acknowledge that we live on some unceded bones. Sometimes me and mine imagine ancestral homes. All I got so far is Montgomery, Alabama. Maybe a boat, maybe a plot of land somewhere so far from the South Sides I've claimed that I would get lost on the way. I admit, sometimes my homies talk about their families immigrating and I get jealous. We lost the land we were custodians over before I was a twinkle in the eye of a twinkle in the eye of a twinkle in the eye. Closest I got to a homeland is my mama's Caucasian pitch on the phone calling the police. Closest I got to a homeland is not never calling the police. Closest I got to a homeland is my daddy's laugh in a spades game. Closest I got to a homeland is my lover's tongue talking or otherwise. Closest I got to a homeland is the funk under a DJ's needle in my hand full of a dance partner. Not to be dark, but I am. Not to be dark, but the planet is on fire. Not to be dark, but they move in capitals because the water is coming up. Not to be dark, but our bones are in that water too. Maybe that's my capital. Once the polar capitals melt and there's a whole lot less land for folks to buy and sell and steal, maybe everybody will feel a little more dark, will feel a little more homelandless like we do. Why you think I call my compatriots homies? Maybe ain't no home, except for how your beloveds cuss or pray or pronounce. Cool. Oh man. What do I want to read? I'm like improvising and shit. All right. Oh, you know, I was thinking about this poem today, actually. I'll read this. So, you know, when I grew up, I came up in Chicago, and if you know anything about Chicago, it's like wildly segregated. And I had a sort of strange experience, and I went to very integrated schools. So I went to like magnet schools, and one of the things that happened in that is like kids would be bused from all over. So I had homies of, you know, like all different races and all this kind of stuff. And you know, one of my best friends, Bartłomiej, it's my man's. He's Polish. He's from Krakow, Poland, and the neighborhood he lived in was like all Polish and Mexican. This is like a thing that happens in Chicago. Sometimes we joke that like the Chicago mix of people, or like mix of a neighborhood, is Polish and Mexican. Like it'll be one block that's all Polish, next block all Mexican. Because I don't know, they're just like, it's like mad, like very Catholic people who like also have humongous communities and like tend to be like first gen. So this is this poem about this time I was kicking it with Bart and his homeboy. We were at his house, and this homeboy from his neighborhood said some slick shit to me, and then I broke his fucking finger. This is called Poem for Blackie. Your name's so given after you called me Blackie in Bart's basement, and I slid a hard cue ball into your surprised white finger. I ask about you more than I do any of the other neighborhood kids, the ones who were nice to me, or at least silent. I consider you more now than any of the girls down the block with their quick smiles and snapping necks, their fretful mothers peeking in the windows. My man Blackie, if we shook hands today, would your ring finger crook? Blackie, we ate kielbasa together and then beefed. Blackie, Blackie, Blackie. You, apology paid in pain, little reversal of racism, small justice of wrath, my middle school jubilee, my first tiny reparation. Cool. shout out to that kid. Who knows where the fuck he is, truly. Yeah, I should ask my man Bart. Me and Bart, we are like crew of like boys from middle school. We played Dungeons and Dragons together, like every other weekend or something. So I gotta ask Bart where he's at. Yeah, I never played D&D until now because it's just like an excuse to, I don't know, keep talking to my friends from 1999. So that's cool. I'll read this poem about being ashy. I like this poem because I think I like, okay, so I didn't realize this. I didn't realize that like a lot of people of European descent don't regularly use lotion or other moisturizers. I didn't know that. But it's funny because I think I don't know how white people read this poem necessarily, but it's just a poem about being ashy. It's called My Mother's Hands. My mother's hands would moisturize my face from jaw inward. The days she had too much on her hands, when what needed to come through did or didn't show. She still shone, still made smooth her every rough edge hill to brow, hugged my temples with slick hands, as if to say, son be mine, as if to say, this I give you, as if to say, we are people, color of good oak, but we will not burn. We survive every fire without becoming ash. Cool. Yeah. That poem is just really about, I don't know, my mama having too much lotion and being like, come here, and then doing that. But, you know, shout out to like that motion, an iconic African-American motion. I think I'll finish with an essay. Yeah, I'll finish with this essay. So some folks know this, some folks maybe don't, but my grandfather passed away I guess now a couple of months ago, kind of, like the end of February or something like that. And you know, so that was my man's. We were like very close in a particular way. And there's also like a kind of funny family story about my name, but my name kind of comes from him, which will come up in the essay. So I'll read this. Oh, hold on one second. Oh. This is my granddaddy. That's me and my granddaddy and my nephew. Yeah. Cool. All right. So I'll read this. It's called My Name Is My Name, which comes from like a Pusha T song, but whatever. In memory of Armstead Carlos Griffin, 1934 to 2021. One of my favorite family stories is the one about how I got my name. I was supposed to be named Armstead Samaj Marshall. Armstead is or was the name of my grandfather and my great-grandfather. Samaj is my father and his father's name backwards. This was supposed to be my name until my grandmother intervened. My grandparents were divorced, and as the story goes, my grandma said, look, there are one too many Armsteads in the world. If his name is Armstead, I won't babysit. Now, to be sure, this story is maybe apocryphal. Perhaps that was the sentiment, but maybe it was a longer, more intense fight. Perhaps my grandmother's proclamation has become more eloquent or more succinct over the years. Perhaps there are a whole set of dynamics that didn't survive the great migration from experience to narrative, and so I'll never know those lost details. Any of those things could be true, but that was the story as I was handed it, and it's one I love for a number of reasons. I've always been fascinated by names. Maybe this is because I loved hip hop in an era where people still name themselves with a flair for the grandiose. Maybe it's because I grew up hearing the lore of Muhammad Ali and El Hajj Malik El Shabazz. Maybe it's because I come from a line of folks who constantly recycle and remix names And so I understand the process of naming to be a means to carry a story across generations. So as the story goes, I didn't become Armstead Samaj. And the compromise was that Armstead became my middle name. And instead I got the name Nathaniel as a, as a first name to honor one of my mother's cousins who passed away before I was born. I've always been fond of my whole name, maybe because I've always been fond of the people implicated in the names. Anybody who went to elementary school with me might remember me signing all my papers, Nathaniel A. Marshall. In fact, I used to sign him Nathaniel Armstead Marshall, and in like kindergarten, I would spell my middle name wrong. If you've read either of my poetry collections, my middle name makes multiple cameos, as does my grandfather. I keep thinking about names. There's a picture my mom has of me as a little boy sitting with my grandfather and my great-grandfather. Sometimes in the family, that picture has been referred to as, quote, all the Armsteads. Both of the other Armsteads called me by my middle name, maybe as a protest or maybe as a way of showing love, maybe as a way of pointing out our special and particular connection as men in a family with very few men. Likely the reason was some combination of these reasons. Maybe it was just a good way to keep from forgetting. My great-grandfather had Alzheimer's all my life until he passed. He called every woman in our family pretty lady once it got bad, but he always called me Armstead. Maybe he thought I was his son. Maybe the name was just a placeholder. Maybe he really knew me. Nobody really can say. This Sunday, my grandfather passed away. He spent the last many years of his life, like his father, suffering with Alzheimer's. By the end of his forgetting, he started to forget some of the basic functions of living, or he decided to discard them. In his last few months, he stopped walking. In his last few days, he stopped swallowing. In his last few hours, speech left before his body did. Alzheimer's is a terrible disease, and it's one I've thought a lot about nearly my whole life because of the other two Armsteads. My dear friend and the brilliant playwright Erica Dickerson Dispenza refers to herself as a, quote, memory worker, and I've always been struck by the phrase since it was first introduced to me. I think she introduced it to me, but my memory fails me. What writers like Erica do is certainly memory work, a plumbing of complicated histories as a prerequisite for processing and imagining new worlds. I hope that's what I do in my writing. The thing I've always thought is that I would eventually have Alzheimer's as well, because it's the only way I've ever seen men in my family get old. What a strange thing to be a memory worker who is working against time in their own unruly mind. Wait, what was I talking about again? All right, my granddaddy. Look, my granddaddy made so much of my life possible. When I was a kid and I started going to camp at Northwestern University, my mom would save all year to pay my way there. Once the deadline for payment came, my granddaddy would fill the gap between her savings and the outstanding balance. When I was early in my teen years, my mom had some anxiety that because of the schools I'd gone to and the camps I'd gone to, maybe I would begin to build a life that was far away or estranged from the people and neighborhoods I come from. She told me about expressing that to my granddaddy once, and his reply. He told her that it was possible that my life might look very different, but he encouraged her to be open to that difference and to trust I would always find ways to honor and love my family and community, regardless of where experience might take me. I think about this role my granddaddy played in our family. My grandma taught me so much of who I am and have become, but my granddaddy always held space for me to be whoever I needed to be, and he did what he could to aid me in that actualization. And that's often what he did for many of us in the family. On a basic level, he didn't judge us. My granddaddy was not a perfect man. He struggled with a number of demons in his life. I won't catalog them today for you, but trust they were there and they were significant. He was born in a poor Black neighborhood in Chicago and was the first generation of us born away from the former Confederacy. A lot of the stories I know about his childhood are things you might read as sad or tragic or hard, and maybe they were, but I am certain his childhood and his whole life also contained beauty and joy. He was no saint. I love that he was no saint. He was a person. He was flawed, but beautiful, and we had a beautiful relationship. I am grateful to have had him for as long as I did, and I'm grateful for his name. Thank you. Sorry I went long.
Yay, Nate, don't apologize. What are you drinking?
Just tea.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Hit me up in the DMs. We'll see. What did you say about, what did he say about memory worker? Who said that? Erica Dickerson? Am I getting that name right? That's wild. And is she saying it like memory worker, like how you would say root worker? Damn, that's wild. That is wild. Can't wait to teach that immediately, as if I even know where it comes from or who invented it. Okay, amazing. This is the best part about listening to smart people. Is you're like, great. Research done from you talking. Speaking of smart people and research being done from them talking, another slow reveal. Private dancer for my need. What the hell? This book is so fucking pretty. You know, it might look like you can just do this if you have a computer. You can't do this. You see what I'm saying? The more like simply classic something is, the harder it is to do it and have it not look crazy. This looks so good. And when I tell you, like the little flappy dappies with the little other orange right here, and like it just looks cute. And then the way it has these like columns, I don't know if you can see it, my camera is shitty, but since we have lost all of our amenities like touch and friendship, I so value like the solidity of like the artifact of a book. And so I'm so grateful for presses that do the most. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, don't staple some shit together. I haven't seen a human in a year. Can you like make it cute, make me feel like there's somebody out there who wants me to enjoy my life? It feels like an art book. It feels like it's not just the poems, but it's the way the poems were brought together. And I think that is notable because that's how it feels to know Ted, is that it's not just the thing that is in front of you that is so welcoming and like warm and brilliant. It's like the way all of the things that make Ted like come together, and knowing him. I don't know, I think about like when you go to the bodega and you like, I mean, I don't smoke cigarettes. When you go to the bodega and you get like a Lucy, you know what I mean? I don't have enough money for a pack. I feel like Ted is the opposite of like a Lucy. Do you know what I mean? Like it's the whole enchilada when you're dealing with Ted. And I've never had a like, and this might sound weird, I've never had like a casual time with you, Ted. It always feels like sacred and like holy, and like you'll invite us over and make a whole ass dinner, light a candle in this bitch, that your cute dog is running around. I'm like, this is an experience. This is a whole like vibe, a whole aesthetic. And I thought about that when you had your launch. It was so beautiful. And it was online via the Zooms. And I was like, this is a classic Ted. Make something that would normally be whack feel like super juicy and like succulent and like just vibey. To read this book and to sit with it, which it just came in the mail today. It arrived from the ocean seas. To sit with it feels like a whole ass journey. It feels like the destination isn't the point. It's like the meandering. And even if you look through the like table of contents, and it has like all of the cities and dates that sort of do like the localing of where these thoughts and revelations are happening. I am there. I'm there. It's such like a map. And I feel like I know you better from sitting even just with this book for this afternoon. And I'm so excited to like know you better. I'm gonna read his bio. Ted Dodson is the author of An Orange from Pioneer Works Wonder 2021 and The National Monument Always Today, also from Pioneer Works in 2016. He works for Bomb Magazine and is the editor at large for Future Poem and is a former editor of the Poetry Project newsletter. And he just be out here riding his bike, wearing his little looking like such a snack. Everybody make some noise for my literal biological son, Ted Dodson.
Thank you, Angel. That is, I don't think I'll ever get over you introducing me. That's like the best thing that's happened to me during the pandemic period. Not to mention just like, you know, us like being able to hang out in the park and what have you too. Because I mean, what you're saying about like, I don't know, friendship is like, and during the pandemic is a holy experience. It's not something like, you know, you do with a lot of people, to be honest. Like, so it's like every single time I like get to hang out with you, it is absolutely like a sacred moment. And if there's anything that the pandemic has wrought, hopefully in the, you know, I hate to say a positive way, but like, you know, I definitely absolutely feel that between you and me, like, and with our friendship, that like those moments are really like actually sacred and, you know, transcendental. They have transcended, like, you know, the friendships have transcended, you know, my pandemic for sure. Also, you know, Nate, just really quick, I loved that essay so much. So beautiful. And I just loved how much ideas of care, you know, iterated in your work. Whether that was like, you know, care, like familial care or like community care, lotion, etc. I mean, it was really beautiful. So thank you so much. I'm super honored to be reading with you and Safia. And again, thank you so much, Angel. I'm going to read from this new book, An Orange. And I thought, you know, this confession, this book gets high a lot. So I thought it'd be really appropriate to read some of those poems for y'all tonight. And yeah, I'm gonna start my little timer here. So this first poem starts with an epigraph from the movie Halloween, directed by John Carpenter, 1978. I hate a guy with a car and no sense of humor. Soph texts me a picture. It's a parked car at the end of her street. It's the exact station wagon from Halloween Michael Myers steals to escape the asylum where he was confined during the years after he murdered his sister in a psychosexual fit. My first car was a 1993 Volkswagen. The speedometer didn't work, which is funny in that it made me nervous, induced a fearfulness of the endless or undetermined, probably a latent cultural prerogatives structural trigger. How fast am I going, and when will this be over? It's easy to determine the horrific motivations of monsters of violence. They're often banal, clear and resolved, the shape inexorably approaching at a determined velocity. A friend invited me over to her place for a drink. Though we've been friends for a while, as in we've exchanged logins to a couple streaming apps, I've never seen the inside of their apartment. But I know they live without roommates. And I imagine something reasonable. IKEA, maybe a coffee table, a correlation with trends and aesthetics compounded through Capital's stranglehold on our pataphysical relation to what we imagine as signifiers of ourselves. It was exactly like that. We watched an episode of Twin Peaks. third season, which I'd already seen. The one where the goblin in the box shreds those two teenagers. I was high and a little freaked out. Less due to Lynch than my own underlying anticipation of a sporadic, structureless panic, and walked home that evening, nibbling my friend's water crackers. I used to suffer these terrible anxiety attacks, existential terror sirening through me and parking in my collar, floodlights shining, filling in the gaps between my bones. I still have them, but they're less frequent. Their mitigation, a remedy of CBT and on again, off again analysis. I think I need to relax. Should I relax? Okay, I'm relaxing. I have my friend's password to his Shudder account. Zombie 2, 1979, and Tourist Trap, 1979. A camp classic double feature. A shark attacking the living dead, and up next, shambling mannequins who telekinetically torment stranded vacationers have a calming influence. Their excesses, both gore and genre, render its vehicle so replete, each becomes an antidote for any lesser dread. If all this new construction were painted clean as these hotels in South Beach, maybe the sky would be happier, finding affinity among its occupants as the friendlier, newer Earth. Do you remember that Ernie Gare film where via camera trick and glass elevator, slender buildings impart a weightless idea of themselves into the air above San Francisco's financial district, swelling like a chest does with a breath, tilting through the frame at a slow, illusory curve, a parallax rising in the immediate foreground. Laughing with objects as if suddenly humanized is my unabashed kink. A show of true earnestness, serving as poultice for the senselessness of its antithesis, credibility. The wild abstracted, or nature taken for its constituent pieces as metaphor. Bits of the world overheard in the silent tongue spoken by waning gardens whose caretakers churned and replant at their discretion, rarely hearing nascent sprouts pleading back to them. The neighboring hotel is hosting an all-day after party, and so is ours. Their 180 BPM drum and bass runs a jagged angle into our slower 4/4 pop, perfect for those of us coasting on watermelon flavored edible. No matter the number of times we move lounge chairs, the clashing versions of indulgence were inescapable. Marie and I dive into the pool and, submerged, buffer the music temporarily. When she surfaces, her face wet, a small brown leaf sticks to her lip. Later, we take turns doing this. Is it possible for unrelated intimacies to circulate in a way that they shuck their proprietary origins and become common, developing into a unique composition that's all their own, so long as they're received with unfettered concentration? Vacation is a mindset for the fatally employed. All that can be felt out through a point of view that craves frosé. We take a lift to the Perez Museum in the morning and catch the Beatriz Gonzales retrospective. I don't know her work, and it is clear to me I'd been missing out on something extraordinary. The show is announced with 2 massive linen panels that unstretched reach from ceiling to floor and depict a single image, a facsimile of what looks like a Manet painting, though I could be wrong, recodified in acrylic. Gonzales' work unfolds along these lines throughout the show, moving from recontextualizing art, cultural, and pop history through medium and color into more decisive political criticisms, until ending with depictions of sobbing mothers, those who lost their children, siblings, or spouses to cartel violence. Significant, though, is alongside these portraits of grief, she paints herself. Nude self-portraits, clenched in the same throes of despair. Her skin shifted across the palette from the other's beige and distinguished in a doleful, familiar blue. All right. I love that song everyone loves. Leonard Cohen's Suzanne. I too want to be fed tea and oranges and have my perfect body touched by a perfect mind. Perfect being what is only my or your own, only ours and willing to be shared until there's nothing remaining. Then what are we left with? A fleeting thought, the failed resuscitation of a word I can no longer recall that occurred to me writing stone for a cheeseburger. A butt-dialed kiss goodnight. A free day of Wi-Fi poolside at the Standard with Mashenka, Danny, and Aaron, smoking marbles and co-working. A video I took of passing palm trees at night from the back of a convertible, which felt lame and was also beautiful. The bus to lunch with Joseph and Tom, and I eat it riding a scooter home. Whole grilled fish with Soph and Natasha. And I'm so high, I order too much beer and then go bowling and space out when it's my turn to roll a frame. A performance thing, then a dance thing, Amber and I attend. Maya Daren's house in West Hollywood, I never visit because I told Karina I wouldn't go without her. A Bazian Otter show on Fairfax, I go to alone, watch him eat it, riding his bike into a Dutch canal. Then an Ethiopian restaurant I didn't know was a date hotspot for couples who hand feed each other, some enjoying, others wan, while I sample a perfect peppered split lentil dish with my own perfect fingers. I walk up from the street where I'm staying to Trader Joe's, and I pass the parking lot made famous by Joni Mitchell, the former site of the Garden of Allah, an H added to the end when the estate converted into a hotel under new ownership, originally named for Alla Nazimova, star and auteur of so many lost films. Her sprawling complex of bungalows, home to a burgeoning queer nightlife she galvanized in the Hollywood 20s. Breakfast with Elaine and Robert, and the guy who did the motion capture for Gollum is a couple tables away, not talking to his girlfriend. The bus west on Santa Monica takes me to the pier, and I buy a new beach towel with an image of the sunset in California written day glow. The bare facts are strange. An orange, the color of sky, spirited apart from matter's cool reality, running parallel to Venice Beach, where the horizon turns against us. All right, and I'll read this last one. This one does not get high, oddly enough. I still think, yeah, oh shucks. I still think it's pretty good. To speak gently with you makes the whole world again accessible for a moment. The spine straightens and shoes settle evenly on the surface, counting back up from 0 to 10. Health's unlifted veil doesn't conceal what's horrible or loathsome, not amplifying what's beautiful or even insignificant to notoriety. We are occasioned with a clarity, or like generosity, like closeness, like we've hopped to the bottom of a well to gather water where it's the coolest, directly from the source, only to look back up what we thought was this deep perforation in the earth and see we are still standing in the open and vibrant field of the world at hand. This is true recognition, where the thrill of words is felt when they emerge without pulling them from within and are offered from the world to the world. We are left with a memorial to this thinking space errant ideas once occupied, the dispassionate air in which small cumulative judgments were made about people and things, you know, like what I think about you. I remember the summer. It was more of a feeling than a vision. An ombre rope knotted with a variety of connections. What was just enough something to be even more nothing? There's peace and reconciliation, I hope. I keep hearing that Skeeter Davis song. It's the only one I know. The End of the World. It would be somewhat ominous. Another forecast for our increasingly lubricated suck into finality. But it's a song of the immediate aftermath of heartbreak, of lost love and hopelessness, true tragedy that doesn't change or waver for 2.5 minutes. There's nothing more perfect than a song that doesn't change its mind. Romeo and Juliet are dead when the play begins. Star-crossed lovers take their life. And we watch anyway, knowing no matter what illusions or other simple delights can be drawn from this work, the future is transmitted in a crystal of the present. And we are its engaged monitors, disclosing more of itself to itself. There is no sudden death, no startling violence to apprehend. Like Fulci's promise of a lathe through the eye, we see it coming. It's like generosity, like closeness. And however struck one can be in the mirrored room of eternal transfigurations, it says Reverdy writes, the same and single voice persisting in my ear. Thank you.
Yes! Ted, get your life and look into this fucking chat. Look at the things being said in this chat. I'll tell you what, this is better than a CV, this chat. This is your new rec letter. I also want to say, like, why do your lines have so much integrity? Like, they're so, like, self-sufficient. They're like, so you don't even need to finish the sentence. The line itself, you can like hear where it ends. And I kept thinking as people are like quoting the lines and as like I'm hearing you say the lines that like, you know, there's a lot of like integrity in the line. And I mean that in a like, I don't even mean that in a, like a moralistic way. I literally mean almost in like an architectural way. There's so much integrity in the line. Because the first thing I thought was, oh, that's a prompt. 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 Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that sounds great to me.
transmitted in a crystal of the present is a prompt, right? And also to speak gently with you makes the whole world available again is a prompt. And this one that I maybe might fucking write. Splitting a perfect dish with my imperfect fingers. That's like easily like 2 or 3 poems. There's a lot of perfect dishes. Anyways, love you. Love what you're doing for the culture. We appreciate
Thank you, Angel.
Not last or least, because she's the beginning and the end. This book that's beautiful and haunting, like Safia. You think everything's fine because her outfits are nice, but it's not fine. Everything's sad and profound and novel length. So much to say about this person. One thing that I want to offer is she has yet to write a bad poem. What's that like? Sounds fun. Sounds interesting. I'd love it if my drafts would just be fine. I would love it if they like came out and then like went on their way, went to college. They don't. They're like, change me. I shat. That's what happens to my drafts. I can't believe you sustained a novel length of poems. Are you okay? Sounds hard. I also can't believe that this is for the youth. I have to say that was my biggest skepticism. You know what I mean? You're baby faced, but everything that you have to say is very dangerous. Just a very dangerous baby. I can't wait for everyone to hear what you're about to say. I'm just gonna read your bio. Safia Elhillo is Sudanese by way of Washington, D.C. She holds an MFA from the New School and was a founding member of SLAM at NYU. She is the recipient of a Kaveh Khan Fellowship, a Wallace Stegner Fellowship at Stanford University, and Ruth Lilly and Dorothy Sargent Rosenberg Fellowship from the Poetry Foundation. Safia is listed in Forbes Africa's 2018 30 Under 30. And her first book of poems, The January Children, won multiple awards. It's true. Home is Not a Country, is her first book for young adults, for ancestors, sounds maybe more accurate. Is a love letter to the diaspora communities she grew up in. Please get this book. And it's also, I have to say, like, I feel very selfish with these. I feel like it's hard to buy these for other people. I feel so good about, I feel like it's so, I'm like, you want to pass this out at Halloween. You know what I mean? Not because it's scary, but because that's when you give people free stuff. But it is scary. Safia, I feel like I have you read at the salon every 2 months. I gotta say. Thank you for continuing to say yes. I'm gonna keep asking. Everyone, please make some noise for the MacGyver of outfits, Safia Elhillo.
Thank you so much for having me. Angel, I literally will set up like a standing weekly appointment if you ask me to. I love you so much. I love this space that you helped create so much. Nate and Ted, I love your poems so much. And this is just a really lovely way to be spending my, what day of the week is it? My whatever afternoon, evening that it is. Time does not exist. I eventually am going to read some excerpts from Home is Not a Country, but what I kind of selfishly am going to do first, I am in the middle of trying to revise some poems, so I'm going to read them out loud to you right now so I can figure out what needs fixing. And there's nothing like knowing that other people are hearing them to, you know, really make my ear a little stricter with these poems. This first one is called Final Weeks, 1990. Hours before, the night outside is black as my grandmother's hair. It's newborn moon in Sagittarius. And in the Maryland house, my mother is 23 behind a winning hand of cards as the water darkens the length of her skirt. December now, and friends still call her Al-Arus, the bride, 10 months married and the shock of it not yet settled behind her eyes. Morning and the baby has not come. Milky winter sun in Sagittarius. I should mention there was a husband, 27. I can hardly imagine it, a boy that age, my father. I cannot picture him in the room, though his work for years to come will absorb him into countries that smell of blood. Maybe he is in the room now, not yet a specter. I sketch him in, but do not know where to put him. Maybe in the corner, back rigid against the white wall. I cannot imagine them ever touching. I smudge him out, correct the still wet scene. He is outside, long-limbed in a hard plastic chair. My mother called him Jack, and this is my only proof they were in love. My mother is almost my mother now, darker color of the noontime sun. In the waiting room, I should also place my grandparents, peregrine species in the stark white hallway, though they are both elegant in that old over-formal way of immigrants. My grandfather's shirt never without a collar, lush neatness of the afro against his head. My grandmother could pass for a film star, hair black and feathered down her back, any suggestion of curl or coil since burnt away and set every morning in hot rollers. Her eyebrows tattooed as they have been all my life, blue-black parentheses, bride for whom my grandfather wrote long poems in classical Arabic, praising the moon in her face. Both of them older siblings to the independent state of the Sudan. My grandmother 13 years its senior. My grandfather a January child of unknown birthday, though the colonial offices record it as 1930, 26 years before his country is born. I do not know if they are in love, but they are placid companions. Their courtship cooled amicably into a sort of siblinghood, and I have never seen them touch, so I cannot imagine it now. I assemble her in another chair while he paces the cool length of the hallway. 1 hour and 39 minutes past noon, that final diluvian push, and I am outside, full head of wet hair, pomegranate creature cawing that little animal sound, pronounced a girl and named for a dead great aunt, the birth certificate dated and signed in ink. Back home, I would have been known by my first two names, mine and my father's, Safia Yaqub, the surname rarely used, but in the new country, the paper demands a patronym. Anglicized, the L becomes a looser L. Hello, meaning sweet, strange, unserious allonym of that first great-grandfather, and crowded together on a single line, marked first name, our names, mine and his, Safia Yaqub, little echo of that forgotten epithet, that once loved man, of Jack. And though I am not named for my mother, we match, Safa, noun form of my adjective, our shared first syllable, closest I have ever seen them, him and her, almost touching. This poem is called Arm's Length. Though to a child of fleeing people, my husband has never held his name and body at arm's length at an airport. We looked at maps, taking turns with the middle seat, summered in old cities, held hands at the airport. In that famous city of romance, we folded in with the other immigrants, spiced food and blue smoke, shisha a perfume in the air, portmanteau as a game we played in transit, the mischief found in Christopher. I left loving that old city, even when I was searched at the airport. When we were first married, he would dream of all the places we might live, security arriving again after I'd boarded to remove me from the airplane for a third search, my clothes scattered around the jet bridge, shame swelling in my throat. It's a joke by now, the Muslim at the airport. All the places we might live, healthcare and a metro. Do we speak the language? Cost of renting an apartment, its proximity to an airport. Twice, already pregnant, my mother on a long ago flight, turbulence and nausea in return for passports for her children, our ease in every airport, while she stayed behind to be searched, headscarf and the wrong papers. My brother and I, American and killing time, eating fast food at the airport. After that election, after each new video where we die, we consider our ancestral work of leaving, bored of destinations like a menu at the airport. He has his heart set on it, that city, my husband. It's long afternoon, sunset 2 hours before midnight, and I can't. It was one time, but still, the airport. They hate Muslims in that country, I eventually say. My exalted passport, just paper, ugly shade of blue, and everywhere in the world. The airport, the place where it is most plainly said, but not the only. So where is there for us to go, for me and mine? Name I cannot help, and cannot hide what it reports. And now it feels so far away, that place, that portal. I surprise myself by longing. The world, everyone, everything I love, kept from me on the other side of an airport. So one of the few things I managed to achieve during this here pandemic is I finally watched The Sopranos, which it just never occurred to me to watch it before. I like don't have a lot of patience historically for the like prestige boy dramas. But no one told me that it's just a show about a diaspora community. So I watched it, I loved it, fell in love with Tony Soprano, found out that James Gandolfini died, and no one told me. So I went through a lot last summer. So I wrote a poem. This is called Tony Soprano's Tender Machismo. I know him. 3 buttons undone down the baobab chest. Quiet humility of the wisping hairline. I watch him cup a face in his great paw to kiss a cheek. Exact manners of my first beloved men, sturdy and broken-hearted as cattle, my uncles. Watches matting the thick hair of their left arms, brother-aged and fathering into my empty spaces. My father was gone, and into that great room they poured, big-shouldered boys, hot streak of anger at each center. I was a child wealthy in shoulders to climb, swung from arm to heavy arm, tender booming of my name in that chorus of approving mouths, gifts shining and breakable in their hands, fairy science of the music box, tiny chime of each earring, bracelets narrow and silver as their silent injured wives. I am their smart girl and they are proud. I watch him, my uncle who is not mine, 13 years after the show stops airing, and I love him like the child forgetting her abdicated father. He smiles like I delight him. I love him even as he lies, justifying his every crime. I pretended not to hear how they talked about bitches and gold diggers, the news stories with hurt girls naming their injuries, consensus that they are lying, that they must have been asking for it. I am home from college and stepping into their amber scent of cologne and old sweat, their wounded animal smell, their every tender misogyny, quick kiss on the crown of my head. Now their girlfriends are my age, now younger, and now the news about the famous predator. And when one changes the channel and mutters about a setup, I flood that room of piecemeal fathers, where I've kept them installed for years. Its debris includes the stories I kept quiet, everything that was done to me that I will not tell them, includes every word tossed about to name women, how we all thought they didn't mean me. This next poem is still deeply under construction, but is now in like a bunch of prose blocks, but I might go back to couplets tomorrow, who knows. Memoir. In winter, I'd pierced my nose and prepared to move to that city to be an artist. And late in the summer, I did. Hours of highway, then the sudden clog of one-way streets, sweet stink of garbage overflowing in its bins. In the new city, I was not marked. I named myself and was believed. I wore blue eyeliner and allowed musicians to court me, parade of freeform dreadlocks and perfect tattered white tees. I met him the day I returned from Cairo, 7 a.m. at a diner because my body thought it afternoon, because he never slept. I lived on the 20th floor and the wind sounded like crowds of women screaming. For years, I loved him and could not keep the secret. I rode the train at any hour in any direction. I broke dawn in strangers' apartments, someone always singing, someone always unearthing a hidden guitar. We slept on each other's floors and never asked. Dollar pizza darkening a paper plate, our bodies crowding the F train, crowding the Lower East Side. The thrill of a party where no one went home. Hours in the park colored by the changing light. The long walk from uptown to the village. We were like children left to govern ourselves, cheap metal blooming green against our skin in the heat, cups of mostly milk and sugar, singed taste of the coffee underneath. I harbored every day the fear that he would die, breath held when passing cemeteries, ladders, any naked flickering bulb. I pierced 6 more holes into my ears, tended each summer to a new infection. I wore Doc Martens until my feet bled and never broke them in. I thought I'd stay forever. I thought we'd all live. More than I wanted to make anything, I wanted to stay alive. More than the thick stink of the summer, our knotted and painted bodies filling the train car with noise. Left alone, I'd collapse for days into bed, exhausted but unable to sleep, feeling the ache of my fingernails growing long, my chemicals going sour. I only wanted sleep. I did not want to die. So I left. 6 years to the day, an apartment I'd loved. I escaped, I think, with my life. Because I loved him, I look up every few years, his name to check for an obituary. I tend to my infections, salt water and clean cotton. There is so much I have forgotten, so much I did not think to record. My shorter hair, those first moments after waking, my eyes still shut, trying to remember where I'd slept. I look through photographs, our younger faces filling the frame, our bodies always touching. I did not think of it as a time to survive. I thought we'd all still know each other and that we'd all still be alive, meeting years later to retell the story, exaggerating every detail, the cartilage fully healed. I set the table as if someone else is coming, but I got to the other side. I left everyone behind. And now I am gonna, real quick, because I think I'm being a little fast and loose with the time, I'm gonna read some excerpts from Home is Not a Country, and I will try to do it quickly. Nostalgia Monster. Haytham calls me a nostalgia monster and likes to laugh at the dream brain that takes over mine when I hear the old songs and run my fingers over the old photographs. I know the words to the old films and imagine myself gliding in to join the dance, glamorous in black and white, photographed in sepia, frozen in a perfect time. I wish our Arabic teacher would tell us more about what it was like back then, before everyone left, when they were young and dreaming and hearing the songs crackling out of a radio. But I cannot imagine him young or dancing, cannot imagine him any way except the way we know him now, scowling over conjugations and how we mispronounce the language, how it wilts on our American tongues. One of my favorites is a Sayyid Khalifa song, where he sings to a girl he calls a pearl necklace, Ya Igdal Luli Luli, Ya Bit Ya Hilwa Ya Luli, and says, Wain al Hilween Wain Rahu, where are the beautiful ones? Where did they go? And I think he means us, all the ones who left, all the gone. Haytham lives in my building, which isn't actually surprising since it seems everyone from our country immigrated to the same block of crowded apartments. It's Saturday morning and he's ringing the doorbell, frantic, and falls inside when I answer, sweaty and rumpled and still in his house shoes, coughing, with a little joke in his eye. His grandmother, opening his t-shirt drawer to put away the laundry, found his secret pack of cigarettes, which he doesn't even really smoke, which he tried to explain away while dodging the slippers aimed at his head. Who knew Mama Fathiya was so athletic? Everything always so funny to him. She chased him out with cries of, disgusting, disgusting, and where else was he going to go? My mother hasn't left yet for work and makes us tea boiled in milk, poured into mismatched mugs, and hands us packs of Captain Majid cookies she gets from the Bigala, that Haytham and I call ethnic Walmart, where we buy everything, from bleeding legs of lamb to patterned pillow covers, and cassettes covered in a layer of dust. She never seems old enough to be anyone's mother, so pretty and unlined and smelling always of flowers. She clears the cups and wipes the crumbs from the table and our faces in quick movements, pins her scarf around her face and leaves for work. Haytham isn't wearing shoes, so we cannot go outside. We instead spend the day playing our favorite game, calling all our people's typical names out the window into the courtyard. Muhammad, Fatma, Ali, Bidur, to see how many strangers startle and look up when they are called. Mama. Of course, I know my mother is lonely. Her days and nights spent mostly in the company of ghosts. So much of who and what she's loved she speaks of only in past tense, though mostly she keeps quiet. I can't help but imagine that her life was enormous before we came here, loud and crowded and lively as any party, and then the final notes of the song, and everyone is gone, except me. I feel my own smallness as I try to fill her life's empty spaces, though they gape around me, like the one pair of her high-heeled shoes I used to love to play with when I was little. So much of our life feels like sitting at a table set for dozens who will never again arrive, the two of us surrounded by empty chairs. My mother is lonely, and I am her daughter, her only. I think that might be why I'm lonely too. And then to end it on a slightly lighter note. Here's the thing about this book is it's tragic or whatever, but there are some moments that I think are genuinely funny. And usually the case with my poems is that only I think they're funny, and I suspect that might be happening with this book too. But some of the stuff I thought was actually really funny. This last poem is called Overheard. It's Saturday, and I wake messily, sweating and crumpled, and somehow sure that it's closer to afternoon than morning. Through my closed door, I can hear Mama and Khaltuhala, their easy chatter a low hum, the clinking of sugar being stirred into coffee, something meaty and unfamiliar wafting its smells from the stove. When I move to investigate, I hear a shriek and rush to open the door, see my mother doubled over in her seat, her shoulders shaking, and for a sinking, sickening moment, I'm sure she's crying. I turn to look at Khaltahala to find out what happened, but she's smiling, shaking her head as Mama rises, face shining with the tears I'd suspected, but she's laughing, trying and failing to catch her breath before another peal escapes. Khaltahala catches my eye, motions to the kitchen. I made turkey chili. Go make yourself a plate. I point my chin quizzically at Mama, my eyes on Khaltahala for an answer, and she chuckles. Your mother is making fun of my fine American cooking. She keeps calling the chili dam'at khawajat, white people curry. And another peal rings out from Mama, alongside Khaltahala's hoot of laughter, my own fit of giggles joining them. So that's what I got for you. Tragedy and white people curry.
White people curry. Yo, if that really is the invention of white people, which I'm not totally convinced, I would like to see an encyclopedia. Congrats. You guys held it down. It's like Joni Mitchell and
white people couldn't have invented curry, but it, you know.
But chili. Yeah. Like that's the white people curry.
Oh, sorry. I meant to, now they're just all wrapped up in my brain. I definitely meant chili. Is that point in the fast where all food is an abstraction? But, you know.
Speaking of food, while you were reading, Shira came back here to give me, like, which I think is the best part of Ethiopian food, but which is like the injera that is
so good. Yes.
And then to whisper in my ear, Safia is the best writer. So we really, that's a compliment, is what I'm trying to tell you. Do you know what I mean? That's like an intersection of exactly what you bring to the table.
I'm currently trying to convince Chris that we should order Ethiopian food for iftar, so I'm going to use this to make my case.
So fucking good, even though it's like my belly feels like hard from how much
well the injera expands in your stomach after you eat it. That's the fun science of it.
It's clearly a trap, but it's the most delicious trap. Thank you, my haunted king, for reading us those amazing poems / excerpts. I can't believe you're still writing in the worst time ever.
I was supposed to have a book of poems come out this year that just didn't happen because I had never finished it. So the only reason I'm still writing is because I signed a contract and I'm trying not to get sued.
Damn, that might be my strategy next. But I don't know. I don't respect the law enough. I might be under the jail if I try to roll the dice the way you're fucking rolling the dice. Give it up for Safia. Give it up for Ted. Give it up for Nate and his African American museum that he's sitting in. All he needs is like a wooden statue. Give it up for Greenlight and Jessica, who's a co-owner and founder of Greenlight, and just I love her. Like I will go to jail for her. I don't want to be put in that position, but I would. And give it up for yourselves. Thank you guys for coming to hang out with us. Buy their books. My new strategy for like buying books and being a person who likes reading is to treat my bookshelf like a library. So I'm really big on the just daily perusal. Like who knows what I'll pick up? I just pick up and I'll read like 15 pages out of a memoir and I'll be like, wow, Lucille Ball, wild. And then I'll just move about my day. Then I'll read some poems from Finna. And it's like better to feel like it's like, you know, one of those cheese platters than the pressure I feel like of like, I have to finish this book before I start another one, or I should die, which is like too extreme. So that's my tip to you. Buy all these books, support them, support Greenlight. That's why we're able to do free shit like this. Love y'all. Jessica, take it away.
Well, obviously, I have to add that let's like also give it up for Angel. Angel, who makes this space for all of us. She makes it. It comes into being because of her, and we're so grateful to be doing this. Like our website is telling me this is number 22 of the poetry salons. I don't know if that can possibly be true, but it's been a long time that she's been doing this and like bringing all these amazing talents together, and we're grateful for it. Once again, thank you so much, Safia, sorry, and Nate and Ted. And there's a link in the chat to get all of their books, and you can buy them online or you can stop into the store and see the great stuff that they're doing and just like have all of that beauty in your house, in your own place. So thank you guys for being with us. I'm grateful to be in the room with all of you, as is everybody here. Thank you for everybody in the chat. You guys are fabulous. You're making it like a real party. So we're gonna end. Angel, you want to say any last thing, like as we fade to black?
Greenlight Bookstore does not want to propaganda. We do. I know we've all said a lot of things tonight, but Greenlight Bookstore also wants you to live your life, and that's like their core tenet. If living your life happens to include these weird, sad books and this horrible sour punch and a joint, like my night is going to immediately pivot to the minute the screen goes black, I'm taking off my turban and letting my twists fly. We can't stop you, and we salute you. That's it. See you next time.